Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Co-Creation. I am very excited about this session, not just because of who we have coming to speak, but also the whole concept of co-creation. Storytelling is all about getting proximate, and of course, proximity is the theme this year. But not all artists are comfortable with getting so close to their subjects and to co-creation. We've been very lucky with the Stories of Change partnership between Sundance and the Skoll Foundation that brings together storytellers and amazing artists with the remarkable social entrepreneurs that we have in our portfolio, 6 of whom you got to know a little bit better last night. We've been able to explore the possibilities of collaboration and ultimately, potentially, of co-creation, which is an art unto itself. So I look forward to this conversation. I think we're all going to learn a tremendous amount. But I do have a few housekeeping items that I would like to touch on in advance. Please silence your cell phones, but feel free to share using the #SkollWF hashtag. Many of you have been. Please keep doing it. Please wait for the microphone before speaking. We're filming the session and they won't be able to hear you in live streaming unless you speak into the microphone. After the session, please take a few moments to complete the session survey and hand it to the steward on your way out. And delegate-led discussions start at 11:45. If you're attending a discussion, we recommend you pick up your lunch and take it with you to the discussion room. There's also 30 minutes afterwards where you can eat before the next session. So with that, I will happily turn it over to the experience of the next 75 minutes.
Whenever you travel, you might consider visiting a local petroglyph site. They exist in most places around the world. In 1999, I visited petroglyphs that later became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in Azerbaijan. The Gobustan petroglyph site covers 3 areas of a plateau of rocky boulders rising out of the semi-desert of central Azerbaijan, with an outstanding collection of more than 6,000 rock gravings bearing testimony to 40,000 years of rock art. Early humans, animals, battle pieces, ritual dances, bullfights, boats with armed oarsmen, warriors with lances in their hands, camel caravans, pictures of sun and stars. Were these and similar prehistoric petroglyphs all around the world made by priests, prophets, professional artists, or just regular people, collectively over thousands of years? At least one engraving here was. Probably the last carving of note here is actually graffiti, carved out by a Roman soldier passing through in the 1st century AD. He chiseled out the words, essentially, "I was here." Collective intelligence was introduced by Pierre Levy as a shared or group intelligence that emerges from the collaboration, collective efforts, and competition of many individuals and appears in consensus decision-making. Collective intelligence has also been attributed to bacteria and animals, and now, machines. Today, we'll take you on a journey through time, space, and technologies to explore the power of co-creation.
Kat, we're going to hear more from you later. We'll pause the story there. I'm Tabitha Jackson. I'm the director of the documentary film program at Sundance Institute. It's a great honor and pleasure to be here amongst you all. And we love coming here, and you know, the session yesterday, the first session on democracy and engagement, was unbelievably thrilling. The clarity of thought, the takeaways for action, the depth of expertise. I'm not going to promise you any of that today. I'm going to invite you to consider with us, what is co-creation? Why is this term so zeitgeisty at the moment? Why do we need it? And to help me do that are this incredible array of friends, collaborators, people who are thinking deeply about this, who are engaged in it, and people who perhaps don't necessarily accept that co-creation is the answer to whatever it is that ails us. So, there are some things that we believe that informed why we want to do this session. Firstly, at the Sundance Institute, we believe in story, we believe in storytelling, storytellers most importantly, and the importance of the independent voice in culture. We know that storytelling is a transmission system for values, that it's the most effective delivery system for an idea. And so the phrase, the power of story, which has been used and commodified and its meaning has been lost to some extent, the phrase is correct, but the power isn't necessarily a benevolent one, depending on how you exercise it. Think about the story we tell of the United States. The most popular and enduring form of that story, you could argue, is the Western film in Hollywood. It's how many of us grew up encountering what were then called Red Indians, which we now know as indigenous and native people. The Western form was a transmission of a value system. It was about rugged individualism, manifest destiny, and American exceptionalism. That was a story that a nation was telling itself to the exclusion of its founding peoples and without their cooperation, but it has shaped the way that we in the world have seen them for almost a century. So story is important. The creation of story is important, and how those stories are created is important. Who gets to own them? Who gets to deploy them? Who gets to create them? So that's why we're talking about this today. I always come armed with quotes. I have no original thoughts. So I'll be stealing quotes from our panelists as the morning goes on. But I have a couple. I'm going to sit down so I can find them properly. I have a couple that kind of are informing the way I'm thinking about this. Gloria Steinem said, "One of the simplest paths to deep change is for the less powerful to speak as much as they listen, and for the more powerful to listen as much as they speak." Wendell Berry, the great writer, poet, and thinker, and this for me is the metaphor about this, for this. He says that the limits of a camera is that it's always looking in one direction and always looking through a frame. To determine where to set the lens, where it's going to look from, requires imagination. So the great photographers are the ones who knew where to look from, not necessarily what to look at. And I think this is a vital part of co-creation. Where are we looking from? That's going to inform precisely what we see. So let's get this show on the road. I'm going to invite up a couple of people who have been thinking about co-creation in different ways and collaboration. And so let's try in this first slice of what will be a 4-slice quiche, we'll be interrogating, discussing what is co-creation and why do we need it now. So will you welcome Kat Zizek, who you just heard, and Fred Dust. Hello.
Hello.
That was a very lovely reading.
Oh, thank you.
There are two things I love about that. One is just starting a panel by being the lights coming down and a live collective experience of listening. So thank you for that. The other thing I love about it is that the mention of actually the Romans graffiti saying, "I am here." It's just so, it makes me think of those ancient hand prints on walls of caves that date back tens of thousands of years that seem to be saying the same thing, but you never see them singly or even in pairs. There are always many of them. So it feels like humanity has been saying to itself, ever since we could, we are here. We are here. So, Kat, tell me about yourself. What brings you to thinking about co-creation?
I'm a documentarian, and I've worked for 20 years in documentary, I think pretty much in co-creative models without necessarily calling it that for 20 years. And I worked on very large, long projects with many different kinds of partners, with citizens, with organizations, government, nonprofits, architects, urban planners. And I was really privileged at the National Film Board of Canada to explore those relationships in really profound and deep ways. And recently, I was invited to come to MIT Open Documentary Lab to start a new studio called Co-Creation Studio. And there, we now have been tasked with doing research on what co-creation means. So I've had the distinct honor of interviewing over 50 people now about co-creation and how people co-create, not just in documentary, but also journalism and other fields like architecture, again, urban planning, industrial design. And people call it many different things. It's almost like that elephant, you know, and it's just trying to find what is it, this shape that we're all trying to come closer to? How do we step closer in? How do we lean in to often the discomfort of deep collaboration? And it's been a really incredible journey. We'll be publishing a report in the fall with the results of that survey.
From the MIT Co-Creation Studio?
Yeah.
But what brought you personally, why are you interested in co-creation? Often when we think of the arts, we think of the author or the director or the composer. Why co-creation, as you coming from the arts? What personally drew you to it, do you think?
I think because none of those roles really ever fit me very well. I don't feel comfortable in the roles that have been created before. I'm really interested in moving into spaces where we don't have cookie-cutter formula solutions. And so I feel like working with people and not knowing the answers. And it's very improvisational. It's really about finding that space between us where we haven't walked before. I think one thing that really comes to mind is one of the first people I interviewed is Kamal Sinclair, who's at Sundance. And she's now working in New Frontiers, so in new technologies, but she had a history in theater and performance and dance. And she was part of an African-American troupe that went to the Gambia for a month in 1999. And she was doing workshops with youth, a lot of refugees from Sierra Leone. And she said they kept trying to do workshops, and they would have a set and a concept, and then they would draw a line in the sand. And this was the stage, and this was where the audience was supposed to sit. And she said over and over again, as soon as the action started, like the kids would just cross the line, and there was just no line in the sand to be had. It wasn't the concept that they agreed with. They just wanted to step into the action. And I think that's the impulse I certainly have, is just have everybody come in.
And Fred, coming to you, just tell us what you do and why you are interested in this realm.
By the way, no one at IDEO likes to explain what they do. Like, my mom still hates me. She's like, it's funny when she has to explain me. She's like, he's, and it just stops. But so I would say our work at IDEO is to kind of put design, products, strategies, stories into the world, and to be frank, and I'm going to feel really pragmatic in this context. What we found is that if you just put things into the world that you've made for somebody, it's more than likely they don't like it and they don't like you for doing it. And so the reality is that it's really different if you make it with them, if you co-create. And that's actually the same if we're doing work in the private sector for clients or in the social sector when we do work with our nonprofit. When we work with the people we're making something for, it's way better. And I think about it this way. I mean, I was thinking this morning, which is that if I told you guys that I'm going to tell you a story about myself, I made a movie about myself, you'd be like, great. Maybe I want to watch it. Most likely you wouldn't, but it's like, but you probably wouldn't be mad at me for like making the story. If I told you I just made a story about you and I'm going to show it to you, and you're like, great, it's like you'd probably be pretty furious. So it's like the reality is like it's just not fair, I think, for us to kind of own the manufacture of story. And the last thing, and that's why I love the point, the film, is that it's like, I suspect in the work that I've been doing on designing dialogue is that we've mostly been co-creating and in dialogue with each other for most of our history, not so much in the modern era. And so I think the notion that this is actually new, I think is a lot in response to what we've actually been experiencing in the terms of authorial voice or the way we think about things now.
And I think that's a really key point. So you made the point about equity, Kat, which I think is vital, and the sense that this isn't new. There is a reason why we've presumably come back to it, and I think perhaps, in our work at Sundance, working particularly in documentary, there is a sense and a danger and plenty of examples where our well-intentioned endeavors to tell stories about the world and make sense of the world has actually turned into an extractive industry. Mm-hmm. And so storytellers are going into communities from the outside, even the phrase, taking pictures. They're taking pictures, they're extracting the stories, again, all with the best intent, usually, and then bringing the stories out, not leaving anything in the community, and failing to understand certain vital things about what they're looking at. Not unlike, I guess it was the 70s when anthropology went through this phase of being kind of extractive. There are worries that we are doing the same thing now, I think, and so we're trying to find a different way of working.
Absolutely. This is very much about decolonization, about stripping away the colonial aspects of storytelling. I think it's very much about narrative sovereignty, about honoring the people who own the stories, and not just handing over a mic, but really creating new systems and new ways of lifting up that sovereignty.
And I honestly think, really, this has been here for a long time. So I'll just give you two historical examples. So I've recently, because we do in-person research, I've been doing a lot of work going to Quaker meeting houses, which are fascinating processes because basically Quakers sort of like believe that decisions will come out of the silence of listening. And it's a collective process. It's basically, so it's not exactly storytelling, but it is an act of co-creation. And we were talking about yesterday about being in New Zealand and looking at, this is my favorite story, like the Smithsonian there is called Te Papa, which comes from the Maori phrase, and what it means is our place. And I was suddenly thinking, like, what happens when you take a museum, and took the Smithsonian suddenly and said, oh no, this is our place, what kinds of things can happen in that space? It's around us, and I think it's just, we're rediscovering it in a sense.
And I think by having these, alluding to these other examples or learning from these other examples is absolutely vital, and it's not lost on me that this conversation about are we working with or are we working for is precisely the conversation that you as a social entrepreneur community are having. And there are people, all of you are thinking about it, I assume, but people like Partners in Health working with the government of Rwanda, Proximity Designs and Rural Farmers, Selco, congratulations Selco, working with the rural poor, Crisis Action with a different model, and Slum Dwellers International, who we will hear about and from a bit later. But what can we learn? What are the most interesting models of co-creation? And have we actually defined our terms yet? What do you mean by it? You've got a studio that's called it. What do you mean, Kat? What is co-creation?
It's a set of models, and it can be, again, with participants, the way organizations work with each other, and increasingly, I think artists and documentarians, journalists are thinking about artificial intelligence. How do we co-create with these large systems that are much bigger than ourselves? Even journalists 5 years ago would not want to use the term collaboration. Now we're seeing these incredible collaborations across newsrooms, taking massive sets of data, WikiLeaks, and breaking them down together. There's no way that one journalist, one newsroom could do that. We've got to start expanding our roles. And I think just one example of you can co-create just down the hall here, there's a great example of a project called New Dimensions in Testimony. And you can sit down in a couch, and there's a big screen, and there's a life-size person sitting there looking at you. Wherever you are in the room, they sort of stare at you. And you can interact with hundreds of hours of pre-recorded interview with this person. It's a Holocaust survivor. And it's fascinating to think about how, I asked the executive producer yesterday, I did a little interview with him, did he co-create? Did this survivor co-create this project with you? And he said, absolutely. From the beginning, we designed this together. He was on our advisory board. He helped figure out the ethics of this. He helped figure out what questions to ask. One of the questions that I asked him was, how do you feel about being in this project? There was an answer, and he gave such a beautiful answer. And the executive producer said, nobody's ever asked that before, but it's in the system, ready to go. So there's these new ways, and that's not just with him, it's also with AI. There's artificial intelligence being used in natural language processing, all sorts of systems that are in place to allow future generations to have a conversation with this survivor. So.
What do you think co-creation is, Fred?
So, it's funny. I was saying to you earlier that, like, when we brought this up, I was like, there's an immediate visceral reaction, which is like, I don't co-create. It's like mostly because you don't want to have the label of it. And in the last 2 days, I've been like, oh, we co-create. I'm fine with it. That's what it is.
But just to pause you there, why do you think there is a resistance to the term co-creation?
I think because we're really stuck on the idea. I mean, as a designer, I was an artist and then architect. Like, you start by being like, I want to make things. This is me. It's me expressing. And so I think it's actually something kind of innate. And that handprint is like, I am here. And I think what your point is that we have to get to the we are here and we are here together. And I guess I would say that I just want to, I think there are principles and rules for co-creation, and two that I'll just hit. Like, we have a set idea, we've got like 15, whatever. But it's like, two, one is that if anyone went to the creative tension sessions, I can't see you, so I'm like, if anyone's out there, but it's like, and if anyone went to the creative tension sessions that we did yesterday and we're gonna do today, one of the things we believe in co-creation is that you live in tension, that you actually don't live with the notion that there's a single right answer, that we have to live with the idea that there are multiple, and as long as we talk about that, that's okay. That it's like tensions are important. And then the other one that's really basic is, I always say this to our designers, which is like, learn to talk normal. Which seems easy, but it's not. Like, we as designers, we as filmmakers, we as other kinds of practitioners, we learn special language, and that's actually can be highly exclusive language. And so learning to just talk normal is really foundational to actually being a co-creative kind of body and actor. So those are two things that we think about.
Did you at IDEO co-create those rules, or did someone write them down?
Well, yeah. Let's not get into that. But yeah, I mean, I would say they're emergent. I mean, we talk of ourselves as an emergent organization.
Yeah, but you just said talk normally. Emergence. No,
it's like, but we think it bubbles up, right? And then we basically say, oh, that's important, and we grab that. And so I think these things have kind of
and who's the we that grabs it?
We as a collective. And I mean, I will say that when we start to say, oh, these things feel natural to us, it's almost like no one's expressing it. It just kind of happens across the system.
Because I'm being facetious, but not
entirely
facetious, because I think that particularly as we think about artistic creation, or when you think about the work that you do as social entrepreneurs, you've got to get stuff done. And so this process of collective thinking, is it a process of collective deciding? I mean, the bubbling up sounds really lovely, but against a clock and with a deliverable, what is the process to get to that? And Kat, presumably that's some of the stuff that you're looking at. Not just, wouldn't it be lovely if this thing came to be, but like, how does it practically work?
Yeah, it's definitely a living process. So a lot of people will talk about being more co-creative at the beginning of a project, and then as things narrow down, it becomes, in some ways people fall into roles, and the team maybe gets smaller and things get done. So it's not like static, like we are co-creating all the time, but it's tools and ways in which we can just bring more voices and more decision making into the process along the way.
And then where do you see, where does that process stop? What are the ethics around it? So creation is one thing. Let's create this together. If there is money that's either going into it or coming out of it, how do those resources flow? Are there other ethical issues and practical, logistical issues you see around co-creation that we should be considering?
Oh, huge amounts of decision, like you said, the decision making, the money, the time, even just asking people to come into a process like that can be really hard for people that, for example, have two jobs, live in a high-rise. I worked with high-rise residents for a long time, and people have working two shifts. How do you get them to work in a co-creative process that can take a long time? And those are the kinds of things that need to be discussed up front. So it's a lot more about negotiating and figuring those things out together. And there isn't one formula, but I think what we're hoping to do at the Co-Creation Studio is to create more models, to create space for sharing these ways in which people do things. It's a lot of the stuff that happens in the margins. Yeah. You know, that's what I hear a lot, that people say, this is not the stuff that we ever document or that we ever even have time to share with our audiences sometimes. So you can look at work and not know it's co-created. But it's for us. It's time to shed a light on that.
Can I build on that? Because I actually would say that I don't think we have to think of co-creation as being always the entire thing. I think the notion is that there should be moments as we're making things that are co-creative. And I really go back to. I mean, you were saying you work with high-rise dwellers, and it's a classic example. Like you'll pull a town hall together to talk about something, and it's a. If you've ever been to a town hall to talk about a new building or a new no one's listening. Everyone's waiting to talk, right? So it's like, and the best signal that someone's waiting to talk is that their hand's up, because they're like, the moment your hand goes up, you're like, adrenaline's going through your system. So you're basically like, I'm not listening to anything else in the room. And so it's like, so the reality is like, you need new tools to be able to have that dialogue. And and that allows for co-creation. It allows for a gathering, a listening, and engagement in a different way. And so I wouldn't say it's always all the process, but it has, from a design perspective, it has to be built into the process at multiple points, I believe, at least. So.
And Kat, are you thinking of this, I mean, you are investigating it, you're not prescribing it, but is it a model that you would like to see replacing some of the existing sole authorship models, or is it something that can go alongside them?
I think there's many different ways to make work. As new technologies emerge, they don't knock out the old ones. I mean, I think we see resurgence of radio, for example. You know, radio is an older media form, but somehow the internet and our new technologies, our cell phones, our podcasts allow for the radio form, the audio art to rise back up. So it's really just adding to the toolkit.
I think that's a great, so I'm a little obsessed with radio and audio in general, and I think the notion that is a form of co-creation, because it actually relies on imagination from the listener to actually kind of add in to the story. And so I think it's interesting that we've seen the kind of resurgence of that medium at a moment where there's a lot of other mediums that actually leave very little to the like we wish we had more to imagine. So I think we're seeing interesting reactive moments in mediums.
I still think it's the lines are very blurry still for me between co-creation, collaboration, participation. And I think as we go through this session, it'd be interesting to see what comes out. And then I want to bring you both back up with everybody to have a discussion. Kat, I know you have begun to draft some principles around some of your thinking around co-creation. Jamie, I don't know if you can pull up the slide, the 10 draft principles. Ooh, look at that. Jamie, you're on it. So are there any of those that you want to pull out for us? I'm 48, so I can't actually read that font. Okay, nor can you. So
but I will just add, because maybe we haven't talked very much about what happens when work goes out into the world. Mm-hmm. And for us, I think we're very interested in projects that relate to the world in terms of trying to be part of a larger strategy to change the world. Mm-hmm. And one thing I just want to talk about in terms of the Me Too movement, which I think is a really interesting harnessing of social media in a really co-creative way. We live in an unprecedented time of disclosure of trauma. We've never had a time where we've had so many people talk about their trauma. And yet, I think we have not figured out how to think about trauma in a collective way. We still think of it as an individualized, like you just deal with the psychology of one person. And for me, very much storytelling, especially collective storytelling, is about thinking about trauma and healing in much larger collective ways.
Well, this is the beginning of the conversation. I'm going to take your first point: make media with people and within communities rather than for or about them. And your second principle: focus on process rather than just product, as a beautiful segue into our second chapter of conversation. So thank you very much, and then I'll see you in a minute. So next, I just want to show you a piece of work, and then I'm going to introduce two people who are associated with it. So Jamie, let's see the next clip.
Aumba waori, aumba waori, awa ofu, awa oma, eri oma le yawo, ara onu kawe. Aumba waori, aumba waori, awa ofu, awa oma.
The Legends of Lagos is a story hunting project in order to tell a good story about the slum dwellers and to change the government perceptions about the slum communities. It has been fun and we are learning.
Let's go to Madam Olabisi's house.
Ní nǹkan bí ọdún mẹ́wàá sẹ́yìn ni àwọn MPA dìde yìí pé wọn kì í ṣe ẹni tó ní ilẹ̀ yìí pé àwọn làwọn ní ilẹ̀ tí a sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní sá eré.
So she held my hand and we were stepping on dead bodies because the stairs didn't have any space for one to pass through.
So even my family, everybody, they kind of give up on me. What is happening? Is it the end of football for me? Because I had a dream of playing football.
$1 million Guinea. $1 million. It will go a long way. First and foremost, I will start with the children that are out of school.
Wonderful. So, thank you. So, next up to the stage, can I welcome Megan and Bisola? And I will just give a bit of context for what you just saw. I think you're the first people to actually see that clip. Sundance and Skoll work together on a program called Stories of Change. Social entrepreneurs working together with independent storytellers, collaborating, co-creating, some might say. We received a proposal as part of the applications for our lab that we do in the mountains for a fiction film project based in Lagos called The Vagabond King of Lagos. And it was an ambitious fiction film project, and we very much wanted to support it. We brought it to the lab, and during the lab, an incredible transformation occurred. And it turned from a very nascent, exciting script for a fiction film into ultimately a co-creative process. So what you just saw there was sorry, just completely, my brain just froze then, that was rather remarkable. So what you just saw then was the evidence of what has come out of the lab. So Bisola, just tell us who you are and what you do, and then I'll get Megan to do the same, and then we will dive into what this project is.
Okay. My name is Bisola Akinmuyiwa from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm a member of Nigeria Slum/Informal Settlement Federation, a movement of urban poor for dignity and development. I'm one of the founders of Nigeria Youth Media Team, known as Know Your City TV. Federation is the parish of Slum Dweller International.
Fantastic. Okay, Bisola, that is you, and you're a wonderfully trained community paralegal as well.
Yeah.
So, Megan, tell us what you do and how this all fits together.
Okay. So, she mentioned Slum Dwellers International. SDI is a global movement of the urban poor with chapters in 33 countries around the world. And in each affiliate country, you have a federation, a slum dweller federation that's leading the movement, and that federation has a supporting NGO, an organization that provides a lot of different professional and technical support to help the federation achieve its goals, and that's our role. So Justice and Empowerment Initiatives is a human rights organization. I'm a lawyer by training, which is why you see some legal ideas coming into it. I'm an American lawyer, but my home is Lagos. And I've been working with the urban poor in Lagos, Nigeria since 2011. And I intend to be there for the rest of my career.
Fantastic. So, Megan, you and Bisola came to the lab, along with James, who is not with us today, but he's a South African filmmaker who was a big brain behind the script and working closely with Slum Dwellers International. Okay, so when you all came to the lab, I think, what were you expecting, Bisola, when you came to the lab?
Actually, in last year, October 2017, when I went to Sundance Institute Story for Change, what I'm expecting is that you learn more about camera, how to handle camera, how to edit, how to do stuff like try to get a standard product of recording, editing, give out the best taste of filmmaking. That is what I have at the back of my mind. But to my own greatest surprise, what I made is quite different from what I'm expecting.
That's good, because we were, the lab, by the way, is a week long. And so it was clear that our role was not to help you learn how to edit, script write, act, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what you do have access to, because you are part of the youth media team, and you were born and raised in an informal settlement.
Yeah.
This is your community,
yeah.
The story is about. So you have access to knowledge, experience, authenticity, to inform whatever the script for this fiction film is going to be.
Yeah.
And so to Kat's point about focusing on the process rather than just the product, our question to you guys was, how are you going to get to an authentic story about, set in these informal settlements in Lagos, when the brain behind it, who's a brilliant brain, is a South African from outside the community. And so what you came to was the co-creation approach, that you and your team would go out as story hunters, find the stories in the community that would then inform the bigger fiction project, but in the meantime, you can put out these pieces of media, you can be engaging the community, you can be putting them out and sharing them as part of your creative process, which was really exciting for us, more exciting than the potential of a big fiction film project, because we were going to really get to understand what the stories were the emergent stories, how they were bubbling up. So I'm talking a lot because I just wanted to put that all in context. Okay. But what I really want to understand from you is what the process is. So, Megan, I'm going to come to you in a moment to ask you what the challenges and opportunities of this way of working is. But Bisola, first of all, can you just help me understand what are the principles of your work? How do you express them?
The principle of our work, don't let me use my work, of our work as a media, we work with people in a particular area. Maybe we have the mind that let's go to this also, let's tell a story about this community. Mm-hmm. We won't try to get the story from far angle. We have to go to the community, mm-hmm. ask questions from the people who are affected by what is happening, mm-hmm. so that they can give us the raw meat, the good meat, so I'll be able to feel it in the bones.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They give you the raw and good meat so you can feel it in the bones. Yeah. I'm stealing that.
So those are
right.
Those are the part of processing. We have to go to the communities, talk to the affected people to be able to get the good and the important information.
And so what is difficult about that? What's the most difficult bit of doing that?
Actually, in any work that a human being we engages ourselves, there must be a part of difficulties and a part that you enjoyed. Whenever I went to, let me use field, to talk to the community people, we do face challenges of language.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there are presumably multiple languages spoken in Lagos.
More than 36 languages in Lagos.
More than 36 languages in Lagos alone? Wow. Yeah.
So each time we are trying to go out to take some short clip in community, we have to iron out the kind of people we are going to meet, the kind of media person who can imagine in the area of a presenter. How are we going to iron this when we get this, when we meet the person who is speaking this so language? How are we going to handle it? Who will be our presenter? Who can bring it down to their own level? So those are the things that we do work with. And for some of us who doesn't understand what they are speaking, the kind of language they are speaking, it's gonna be a long processing for someone for the presenter to ask questions and to translate back to us. So it takes much time.
So, I mean, I'm aware that we're doing this to you right now. We are, in a sense, you would be more comfortable speaking your first language.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I have no idea what you're about to say, so don't make it rude. But can I just hear what you sound like speaking your language?
Yeah. Yeah. The truth of the matter is that when you are...
Wait, that's my language. You speak, I want to hear you speak. Wait, what is your language?
I know. I will still say something in Yoruba.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So don't be in ace. The truth of the matter is that you feel more comfortable when they ask you to speak in your language. Yeah. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak my language. And Kilode, Kimisele, Otipa Emutirire, but ino mi dun pe mo wa ri eleni and Uderewa.
I hope that wasn't rude because it was so lovely. What did it mean?
Okay. And what I mean is that, I saw you last year in Sundance, and seeing you again with a smiling, shiny, sexy face. It's amazing. So that is what I mean in my languages.
I think you should always speak your own language, Bisola.
You can see.
No, that was wonderful. And there is a serious point behind this, which is working with communities, being in communities. You can miss such a lot if you don't allow people to express themselves in their own way and in their language. So, firstly, thank you for coming in and doing this in English with us. It means a great deal.
Yeah.
And I'll come back to you shortly, Bisola. But so Megan, as part of this co-creative team, how do you see your role, first of all?
So I would say, technically speaking, we were coming in as kind of a co-producer. Our own background is not media making itself, but the social entrepreneur, activist side of things. We had an idea of the change that we hoped that this film would be part of creating. And then once the film itself evolved, and we're now talking about an entire process with multimedia clips that can be used in social media, we know what the impact that we want to have. So that is the role that I originally thought we'd be having. But I think that the truth is that my role can be diverse, and our role as a supporting NGO can be diverse. And I want to talk a bit about this idea of insider-outsider, which I know we've talked about before in thinking. I have a really interesting opportunity to be both an outsider. I think it's obvious I'm an outsider. I'm not Nigerian. I'm not African. And I have that outsider perspective and the challenges that come along with that. And I'm also, in another way, I'm an insider in that I've been living in Lagos, working with these communities very, very closely for now 7 years. And so relative to someone who just came last week, I'm an insider. So, and it gives me an opportunity to actually play a role of, which I think is really important in the co-creative process, of kind of intermediation.
Like a translator.
Like a translator, exactly, but on so many different levels. And to do that in a way that's as respectful as possible to everyone's knowledge and background. And I want to go to another example. So, because of how I look, every day, it's my 7th year in Nigeria, every day is my first day in Nigeria to someone who just meets me. And so every day I get into public transportation and someone says, Oyibo, which means white person, where are you going? Can I help you get there? So it's every day is my first day, and you just have to kind of flow with that, right? But it gets to an extent where when I go into the communities that we work with, people have so little exposure to whether we want to say Western or people coming from outside of Nigeria, that I'm actually mistaken or perceived as being Chinese. And I believe most of the people in the room here would never guess I'm Chinese.
You're not Chinese, right?
I'm not Chinese. But just, we're talking about appearance alone. And so, and if I go into a community, sometimes people will be saying, China, China, Ching Chong, which, cultural appropriateness aside, it's such a different environment, right? So what do I take from that? I take from that my ability and any outsider's ability to see and understand is maybe as limited or as far from the truth of the matter as that perception of me. And so we have to respect. Bisola has been living for 21 years.
Yeah.
She's been living for 20. She's been accumulating knowledge and experience for 21 years, and that knowledge and experience is so different than my own. Thank goodness we actually have a language we can communicate in. But it took time for me to even be able to communicate with someone like Bisola. When I came to Nigeria, at first people say, Oyibo, again, white person, you talk like, people can't understand a thing that I say when I first get there. So the way you hear me talking now, that's not my US accent. It's the way that I talk if I want someone in Nigeria to understand me.
Okay, so I'm going to do the same with you. Can you speak in the way that you would normally speak outside of Lagos? So when you're in America?
It's hard for me to do.
Can you remember how Americans sound?
There's so many of you here.
I know.
So many of us here, sorry. My name's Megan Chapman. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a lawyer. I went to American University.
Right. It's really interesting watching you struggle to re-find that bit. But the translator thing is vital. I also want to address, just in a few minutes left, power. Let's just go straight there. So there is the kind of cultural assimilation that I think you're talking about, the importance of language and expression and authenticity, being able to have those connections. But nevertheless, someone mentioned colonialism. There is a legacy of a power imbalance, and I wondered how you think about that and whether you're coming up against it.
Absolutely. Do you want me to answer, Bisola?
Well, let's, Bisola, do you see? And again, it's this is the uncomfortable bit about co-creation. You're in the middle of it. It's hard for you to speak. It's hard for you to say everything you might want to say about this process. But so I will help you out, Bisola, by asking you a direct question.
Okay.
So James and Megan, who are supporting your work, do you feel that they are more powerful than you and you have to refer to them in a certain way, call them a certain name, do what they say? Have there been any funny experiences around that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let me go back to how we, Africans, as Nigeria, how we do our things. We believe in this of power of respect. Especially Yorubas. We believe in power of respect. Even though if you are 2 years older than me, you deserve to become ma, sir, as in, I have to give you your respect. And in terms of doing that, I don't see any big deal in it. I didn't see them as my boss, but I believe that that is my culture. That is how I've been brought up. And
so this is a respect for elders. You
yes,
call them ma or sir.
Yes,
just
general,
as a respect. That's
yes,
cultural.
General.
Right.
Not to a special person, like this person is special. No, it's just for it general. But the kind of difficulties, as let me use wahala. That is Lagos slang, wahala.
Trouble.
Like trouble. Which I feel that is somehow a little bit so discomfort with, is whenever we are trying to work together with James and Megan. James do forbid us that we should stop calling him sir or mister. He make me to understand that calling him sir, that makes us to look slave I remain.
Whoa, let's just stop there. So he says that, so he doesn't want you to call him sir.
Yeah.
And calling him sir, he says sir stands for slave I remain.
Yeah.
Whoa.
But to me, I didn't say any big deal in it. I didn't even feel it. And I keep on saying, sir, Mr. Mr. James, sir. So we're like, immediately I say sir, Mr. He will change his face. We're like, you have to bone.
Right.
And immediately I got the message. We're like, oh, this person is not happy about sir. So, but still yet, a few minutes later, I still have to say sir, because that is me.
That's your culture. Okay. Well, so that's a fantastic example, and it's complex. So, Megan, from your side, how do you feel about what this represents, this form of address, sir or ma, or do you discourage it?
I think that, like I said, I've adapted into Lagos in a lot of ways. I've adapted to the culture around me. At the same time as there's a lot of things I still continue to kick against or to, struggle with and feel that. And I try to distinguish between the things that are more important and less important. And language is important, but what I try to do on this kind of issue is understand what a person's intention is. And if the intention is one I agree with, I don't worry too much about the form. So when people call me ma, I understand they're showing me respect. And I generally, it's not something I'm going to take time to just say, please, 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 Megan. But if they call me Megan, that's also fine, and that's my preference. I'll give another just example of that. I'm not a religious person myself, but in Lagos, no matter the religion, and everyone is very religious, let's say 99% of people are very religious, people just say God bless you to all the time. God bless you, God bless your family, and so on. And at first I would never say it, and so it's a bit awkward. Someone says God bless you, and you say, thank you. And then there's silence, because what do you say? And I've taken to just saying God bless you in response, because what someone intends by that, I'm happy to reciprocate it. So in a way, I think that, when you live and work together with people, there's adaptation in all directions. But for the more important and kind of underlying issues of power, there's a lot that we do on a daily basis to try to kind of change dynamics. So I'll give a different example where I actually have hammered on an issue.
Great.
The media team, they'll work in one room and they'll be editing or working on a project, and they have this practice of picking up the laptop with the hard drive inside, still attached, carrying it into my office to show me something, and don't walk around with the laptop open with the hard drive attached, it's going to break, you're going to trip, this kind of thing, right? And finally someone said to me, well, after bringing it in, and I said, please, I told you before, let's not do this, because of the equipment and so on. He now said, but in our culture, you're our boss. I said, I'm not your boss. He said, but in your position, I said, same thing. You can't, it's not right for me to come and call you to come and look. And I said, please, to preserve the equipment, and because I'm not your Oga, your boss, come and call me. I'm asking you, please, will you come and call me and tell me to come and look at it where you're working? So which ones are important, which ones are not important?
Yeah, and there are much bigger, problematic, more uncomfortable issues around co-creation, but they start here with culture and with the language and with human interaction. And so thank you so much for talking to us. We're going to get you back shortly as well. I'm just watching the clock tick down. So thank you for this section. We'll see you in a minute. Thank you. So now I'd like to introduce another wonderful pair. Lynette and Chief Tashka, would you like to come up to the stage? So this is a beautiful story. Thank you so much. This is a beautiful story. It's a partnership which began at the Skoll World Forum, a fortuitous meeting between Chief Tashka Yawanawa and the artist and all-around legend, Lynette Wallworth. And well, I happened to be there thinking there'll be a panel in this one day. I want to read something out that, Lynette, you emailed me that I thought was particularly interesting. We'll use it as the jump off for this conversation. Okay. You said, I don't co-create works. I enter into partnerships of mutual intent. Together, we offer the best we can bring towards that orientation, and it starts not with my instinct, but with an invitation. I think that's a really important place to start, and so I'm going to start with you, actually, Chief Tashka Yawanawa. The work that you made together, if that's not too provocative, given what you just said, is called Awavana, and you can see it here. And Lynette, firstly, why don't you just briefly describe that? Then I'm going to ask Chief Tashka why you decided to invite Lynette in.
Sure. So Awavana is it's virtual reality experience. So it means that lens that you referred to before is gone. And it traces the development of the Yawanawa's first woman shaman, Husharu. But the invitation that Tashka made to us was actually to come and film the old shaman, Tata, who is the heart, actually, of this work. And so Tashka knew that form should be VR, and he knew the subject matter should be this shaman, and so we brought this technology to come and actually hold this story of Tata as he passed away inside of a form that would allow the work to then be gifted out from the Yawanawa to us.
And it's a stunning piece of artistry with profound resonances. I just thought today, though, it's interesting, VR, if you look at a virtual reality camera, it's not one camera, but it's many cameras who are able to see all slightly different things that are then pulled together into one picture of reality. Yeah. So I think that speaks to what we're talking about here. It isn't just one lens, it's many lenses, even in that camera.
Yes.
Tashka, why did you invite Lynette to work with your community?
Yeah, 2 years ago, I came to SkollWF Forum and I met Lynette. And she was talking about the coalition, the last work she did with people from Australia. When I saw that, I feel that was beyond a regular documentary. I saw the window where we can share the Yawanawa cosmology, especially linked to the spirituality and linked to the where we live. And also because I feel trust in Lynette. In the Yawanawa, you need to feel that kind of connection. If you don't feel the connection, to take so many years to trust with somebody to work with you. And Lynette and I, we are two dreamers. We bring to the world. I have my way to see that, and she have the way to bring it to the world.
That's a wonderful, two dreamers coming together is, I think of that in relation to Stories of Change, Sandy. That's a beautiful way of putting it. So, Lynette, why is this not a co-creation?
Well, I'm being probably very particular. This is a new, it's a term that a lot of people are using at the moment, and yesterday I would say 7 people said the word to me, and last year no one would have. So, but I want to, I guess, particularly refine what I think are the elements of diversity in creation. That sometimes I have heard people suggesting that co-creating means all making together. And I would say we have come together. It was Tashka's dream. It was Tashka's idea. It was Tashka's choice about the technology. But he chose me and Nicole because we bring certain skill set. And so I want to make definitions around the fact that on the ground and in the making of the work, we hold different roles. And there's a sharpness to that because you have to bring what it is that you do the best. And I know what I do well, and I know all the things that I don't do well. And I don't want to blur the boundaries of what I think should be the delivery of the most powerful work we can make in standing in a circle together.
One of the reasons I was very happy when you agreed to be on this panel, given your reservations about the term, is that we have this, it's not a dilemma, but through Sundance, we're supporting the independent voice. And there is something to a singular, identifiable, distinctive voice that we value in the arts. But you still, I think, collaborate. Can you tell me about how you think about your collaboration together? So 2 dreamers coming together, but to get to the kind of nuts and bolts, and Nicole Newnham, who's a fantastic producer, pioneering producer in the way that Lynette has pioneered the direction of these pieces, who owns the work? Who is recognized in the results of the work? How do you think about that?
We own it together. And onward, as the work lives more in the world, I will own it less, and Tashka and the Yawanawa will own it more. So in these opening moments when people want to see the work and they want to talk about the technology and it goes to the film festivals, and we can track this through Collisions, which is the work that Tashka mentioned that came previously to this one. So then, we will all front up like we are now and talk. But as the work gets older, my role in it and Nicole's diminishes because the work is held by the community. So with Collisions, for example, Curtis in Australia shows that work much more than I do now. And Tashka and Hushaku and the Yawanawa will own this work and hold this work, and they will gift it into the world. My pleasure is in making the work. I adore making the work. That's my job, is to make the work. Onward, then it's like then I have done what I should do.
So Megan described herself somewhat as a translator in this co-creation. How do you think of yourself and your role in this?
So, you know, we talk about, and you started by asking Kat her personal history, and we can't move away from who we are in the world and the things that bring us to the life we have. And Toshka and I often talk about being people who live between worlds. So we are like bridge people. For me, it's a sensation of not particularly belonging anywhere terribly well. But what that does, if you're continually tracking places where you don't belong, is you live with an alertness to everything because you don't really know the path at all. You have to watch and listen, and everything is slightly uncertain. So I live like that. And when we had conversations by Skype about this work, one particular moment I think is helpful. Tashka would use words about what we were doing, and I might say film, and he would say transmission. What is this thing we're doing? Well, it will be a transmission. At one point, I was worried about Tata, the shaman, old shaman, who we were coming to film, and I was saying to Tashka, in terms of practicalities, what will this be like for Tata, that we have to put a camera in front of him and I will disappear and everyone will disappear and he will have to be giving his transmission to a camera, and will that be okay? Because he will be offering it to us who are not there with him. And there was silence on the other end of the phone, like just silence, like, and that's when I know that I've said something particularly stupid. And so then I just have to wait and realize that there's going to be knowledge here for me. And then Tashka spoke like very quietly, very, very quietly, like, Lynette, when Tata does ceremony, he first of all prays for the person in front of him, for the healing. Then he prays for the community, the village. Then he prays for the forest. Then he prays for you, the holy world. He's always been praying for you. Maybe you never knew it. That's why we need our difference, because he knew that. I never knew it. I'm assuming 99% of you in this room never knew it. How are you ever going to hear that unless these invitations are made? Come and stand in this strange space where you don't know and send out what you find.
And Tashka, the last word to you. How has this process been for you, and what is the importance of the work for you?
I think the work that we did today is sharing a voice, a vision, straight from the community. I think it is the power of the media. Because just to come here, take up about a week. Imagine where we are located, where we live at.
Just to get here takes a week.
I get a 6 hour by canoe at the road, and I get about 12 hours by truck, and I get the flight to Brazil, São Paulo, and here. You know, imagine how you guys can hear people living that. Through media, when people hear about, when they see our Vena, they see where the Yawanao coming from. They see the connection with people, with the nature. My father used to say, people do not respect what they didn't know about it. After people see our Vena, they feel in touch with Yawanawas, with the forest, with the nature. And that's changes people's mind. Like we have this incredible experience now in Economic World Forum in São Paulo. We met the governor from Oaxaca, Mexico. And a month before I was in Oaxaca, and my brother-in-law, because my wife, Laura, she's from Oaxaca, and he was talking very like, wow, He was complaining about the government of Oaxaca because he don't give too much attention for indigenous people. He's not linked with people from there. And I don't know, I put this idea, I don't know, I want to meet this guy, but I don't know how. But I have this feeling, I want to know this guy. And suddenly, Nicole and us, we was in this Economic World Forum, and the governor of Oaxaca show up. I said, what's going on? He's coming here. And as you watch our Vena, he comes out, he was, wow, I want you to do something exactly what you do with the indigenous people from Mexico, from Oaxaca. Wow, that was a dream come true. Like, he saw how indigenous people have so many things can share with the world. And he not give the value to the local community that live in Oaxaca. That's strong changes happen.
Yes, it's incredible. And this seems to be a journey from the first meeting at Skoll, you bring in collisions here. We have the gift from the Yawanawa people, and it's incredibly powerful. I'm looking at the clock, which says I have 6 minutes left. Erin, is that correct or not? That's correct, okay. So what we're going to do with the 6 minutes, I'm going to ask everyone just to come back on stage. We don't need chairs because we only have 6 minutes. I'm going to ask everyone to come back on stage, if you would. Let's step it up, we've only got 6 minutes. And then I'm going to ask Fred, with your big brain, to reflect on a couple of things that you've heard. And then Bisola, will you come and stand next to me? Bisola, then we're going to finish. Because we don't have time for a Q&A, we're going to finish by Bisola helping us to do something together. We're going to co-create the end of this panel. Oh, yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So you wait there for a second.
Okay.
Fred, wrap this up for me.
Great. Thank you so much, Tabitha. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go, saying I've started kind of being the pragmatist in the room. I'll say that one of the things I've been reflecting as I've been listening to people is that really, there's the tactics of how we co-create, which that's easy to think about how we learn it. And then there's the why of why we co-create. And I think what I've been realizing is that we choose this. It's a choice we make. And it reminded me of the piece of graffiti you showed that was the Roman soldier saying, I was here. And I think that we can be in the world saying, I made this, I am here, which feels pretty lonely if you think about it. Actually sad in a lot of ways. Or we can say, we're here, we made this, which is what I think you're talking about. And that feels so uplifting and so powerful and so full of love. So I guess I would say co-creation is really a choice that we make to say we're here, not I'm here alone. So that's my reflection.
Thank you, Fred. I will take that as my reflection also. All right, so continuing the theme of uplift, could you uplift the house light slightly? I'm totally making this up, so no one's expecting this. Could you bring up the house light so we can see each other a little more? And Bisola, I remember when you came to the lab, you got us into your beliefs and your mindset by just doing a couple of engagements. So why don't you see if we can do it with our lovely friends in the audience?
Oh, it is my pleasure to also practice that with you guys.
Should we get them to stand up?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Okay. So, before we go, I will try to give you outline of what we are going to do. We believe in my own state and with the movement which I joined, we believe in unity, our strength. So when I say unity, you guys will say our strength. When I said our strength, you guys will say unity. Is it okay?
Okay, let's try it.
Yeah, that is number one.
Let's do it. Let's do that one first.
Okay. Unity,
our strength.
Unity,
our strength.
Our strength.
Unity,
our strength.
Unity.
Yeah, that is number one.
All right, good.
The second one that is actually in my language, I feel like, so you have to bear this with me. Agbajowo. When I said Agbajowo, you guys will say laughing soya.
All right, we're taking it up a notch. Say that again.
When I said Agbajowo, yes, you can write it down. But because you guys have to say it, yeah. So when I said Agbajowo, you have to say Lafin Soya.
Okay.
I try to break it down.
Okay.
Lafin Soya, that is it. Lafin Soya.
Okay.
So, are we good to go? Yes. Yeah. In the vice versa, when I said Lafin Soya, you guys said Agbajowo.
Okay.
We are good to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Agbajowo.
Lafin Soya.
Agbajowo.
Lafin Soya.
Lafin Soya.
Agbajowo.
Information.
Power.
Power.
Information.
Yeah. That is what we believe in. Thank you.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. But we've got 2 minutes left, so we're going to do it again. We're going to shout it, and then we're going to leave.
Oh.
All right?
Nice one.
Okay. Nice one.
Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready.
Information.
Power.
Information.
Power.
Power.
Information.
Unity.
Our strength.
Our strength.
Unity.
Agbajowo.
Lafin Soya.
Agbajowo.
Lafin Soya.
Lafin Soya.
Agbajowo.
Thank you.
Thank you.